Hi, Roy Garton, and welcome aboard to another edition of The Right Has Left, where we discuss what's going on in this world today, particularly the Trump White House and administration, and all the news that has been breaking from this past week. So let's go ahead and get started, all right? Because what is news without Donald Trump? As we all know, Mr. Trump has been visiting the Middle East, and he has been bringing forth a lot of the great accomplishments that he has made in trade deals with the Middle East, of them bringing business to us here in the United States. And that's a good thing. Obviously, the country of Qatar has given him a $400 million jet from the Qataris, and we'll be talking about that jet just a little bit later, because that in itself is very newsworthy. But let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the Trump family and all of their holdings in the Middle East. So starting with Qatar, the Trump Organization last month announced a new golf resort and real estate development that will be built by Dar Global along with the Qatari government-owned developer. The project, called the Trump International Golf Club and Villas, will include an 18-hole golf course, a clubhouse and beachfront, and a Trump-branded villas about 400 kilometers from the Qatari capital, Doha. Now, Qatar is a longtime U.S. ally, as we all know, and it hosts the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. That's a good thing. No problems there. So, this is just another branding deal, though, for the Trump family businesses, where it won't put up any capital, but will earn millions of dollars in branding and management fees once the golf resort is operational. So again, Trump physically is not there. He's not doing anything. It's a branding deal. He loves to sell his name. And the United Arab Emirates in the UAE, the Trump Organization already operates Trump International Golf Club in Dubai, which opened in 2017 during the president's first term. The project is part of a longtime partnership between Trump and Hussein Sawayi, an Emirates billionaire and founder of the Damac Properties, a Dubai-based developer. Now, Damac was supposed to be building a second Trump-branded golf course in Dubai, but that project has been beset by delays. Trump's dangerous projects follows a predictable pattern. Hamid Muller read more about this in a recent publication, but the Trump family businesses is moving ahead with another project in the UAE, including a $1 billion 80-story Trump International Hotel and Tower, again being built by Dar Global, the Saudi-owned real estate developer. Apartments at the unfinished luxury tower, which according to the developer will include the highest outdoor pool in the world and overlook Dubai's river and the world's tallest skyscraper, which already are selling for $20 million each. And the Trump family's dealings with the Gulf Arab aristocrats go way beyond real estate deals and golf tournaments. On May 1st, Eric Trump, the president's middle son who runs the Trump Organization while his father is president, and a business partner, Zach Witkoff, who also happens to be the son of Steve Witkoff, the president's special envoy to the Middle East, revealed in a major news cryptocurrency deal with the venture fund backed by the government of Dubai, the richest emirate in the UAE. The fund would invest $2 billion using a form of digital currency offered by the World Liberty Financial, the Trump's family crypto business. Such a transaction would generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue for the Trump and his family in a financial deal linked to a foreign government and a longtime U.S. ally. So, Trump's basically taking care of himself when he gets out of office. So is it any surprise that the Trump would want to use the first major foreign trip of his second term to reward leaders whose countries are making large investments that would ultimately benefit his family businesses? They're going to be benefiting the United States, hopefully, with all of their publicly announced deals that they say they're going to do. It hasn't come forth yet, but they have announced it. So it's a little consequence that the other foreign leaders would be eager to partake in Trump's corrupt politics. I say they're corrupt. That's my special opinion. I know he says it's not, but we're going to get into a little bit later how he's using Pam Bondi to make sure all this stuff flies through. So he's saying there's no conflict of interest, so we'll have to wait and see. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said it was ridiculous to suggest that the President Trump is doing anything for his own benefit. The president is abiding by all conflict of interest laws, she said. So, again, we're going to be talking a little bit about Pam Bondi and what he is planning to do with using her to make sure all this stuff is legitimate. She is the U.S. Attorney General, and she can sign off basically on anything Trump wants, and she has already done that. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's talk about this $400 million jet, all right? Because it in itself is quite interesting. The jet, as you know, is a gift from Qatar, and it is supposedly already being retrofitted as Air Force One, and that's the truth. President Donald Trump is ready to accept this luxury Boeing 747-8 jumbo jet. It's a decade old, 10 years old. And it's a gift from the ruling family of Qatar during his trip to the Middle East. They gifted it to him. Now, Qatar says, well, it's still in the works. But we already know, because here in Florida, where Trump resides, that jet has been sitting here on U.S. soil since February. It was parked at Palm Beach County International Airport, and that's where he got his first glimpse of it. And so it's going to be converted and potentially into a Air Force One and retrofitted. Now, listen to a couple of these clips about Donald Trump being questioned about that jet. Watch.
Well, I think what happens with the plane is that, we're very disappointed that it's taking Boeing so long to build a new Air Force One. We have an Air Force One that's 40 years old. And if you take a look at that compared to the new plane of the equivalent, stature at the time, it's not even the same ballgame. You look at some of the Arab countries and the planes they have parked alongside of the United States of America plane. It's like from a different planet. But I thought it was a great gesture. And I think it was a gesture because of the fact that we have helped and continue to, we will continue to, all of those countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and others, we keep them safe. If it wasn't for us, they probably wouldn't exist right now. And I think this was just a gesture of good faith.
As a businessman, some people may look at this and say, have you ever been given a gift worth millions of dollars and then not received anything?
It's not a gift to me, it's a gift to the Department of Defense. And you should know better, because you've been embarrassed enough, and so has your network. Your network is a disaster.
Now, the Houston Chronicle has already reported that the jet is somewhere in Texas and is already starting to be retrofitted into U.S. To Air Force One. And because the Air Force itself said it would take up to 2 to 3 years to retrofit the jet so it's, it meets all security standards from a military point of view. And also the fact of the matter is that Trump wants that jet in the air. He is sick and tired of the present Air Force One that he has to fly that, is from Boeing aircraft. So he's got this jet gifted to him. And it's just 10 years old, and he wants to get it in the air as soon as possible. The tail number on the jet has already disappeared from FAA logs. So, and when it's in the hangar in Texas, it's already been covered up. So they're already on it. Now, it's going to be overhauled by L3 Harris Technologies Incorporated. L3 Harris is the company that is usually the contractor that worked on previous Boeing aircraft and for Air Force One. L3 Harris is just up the road from me in where I reside in Melbourne, Florida, very close by. They have not publicly said they're doing anything with that jet, obviously because it's top security information, although it's already been publicly announced that they are working on it. So everybody's got their little secrets, but it's all public knowledge all of a sudden. So they are saying that they're going to be doing a probably quick turnaround on a particular aircraft, and this is again Trump rushing things along. And God forbid if anything would happen, but he wants that jet in the air. Now he says that's going to be gifted to the Department of Defense, and then in turn it's going to be at the presidential library when he leaves office. I'm anxious to see if that will really happen. For him to use this jet, it has to be in the Department of Defense. And since he has his own cronies working in his administration, I'm sure it's just going to move right along. Again, there's huge questions on whether or not a president can accept a $400 million gift like this. But as we all know, on day one of his administration, he had an executive order, which I don't think is standing because I think Congress has to act upon that it is now okay for any president to accept anything they want as no matter what the dollar amount of value is on it. So right now that jet is sitting in San Antonio, Texas, and it's already being retrofitted. So critics blasted Trump's plan, saying it will cost too much, has an unrealistic timeline, and possesses security risks that the interim jet won't have the features other Air Force Ones have relied on to protect the president. He doesn't give a crap. Get it in the air, repaint it. It's my jet. So basically that's what he wants to do. He wants to get it painted a different color too. He doesn't like the egg blue and white livery that has been on previous Air Force One. So he wants power blue, baby. No baby blue. I want power blue. He said that in January. And and again, this is what's weird is because they have two Air Force Ones in case something happens to the first aircraft or they need to fly a decoy in particular countries that they go to just to protect the president. This one is very uniquely styled, very uniquely designed. It's slightly different than other Boeing 747s, so it's easily spotted. And again, I don't know how they're going to get around that too. See, there's all these security risks, but he doesn't really understand all of that. So it'll be anxious to see what happens. He defends that him accepting this jet aircraft, $400 million, because Boeing is so far behind and he wants something up there that's going to be great and for him to fly. All right. So that is one thing that's going on there. Now, about this aircraft and how come it's moving along so fast. And that is because of this lady, Pam Bondi. She is the reason that things are just going along so smoothly, and why he's going to have this aircraft no matter what happens. The Democrats have no power to say anything, although they are bitching and complaining. Again, they're in the minority, so there's nothing that they can do. Pam Bondi, however, has already signed off on it. And let's talk about Pam Bondi and her ties to Trump and also her tie to Qatar. In March 2016 in Florida, when she was then Florida's Attorney General, there was a lawsuit going on about Trump University. And she was then our Attorney General, and she was supposed to look into the legalities and the fraud that may have been committed by Trump University. What does Donald Trump do? Hey, Pam, here's $25,000 for you for your campaign. It's a contribution, political contribution. Thanks for everything that you do. So Pam Bondi takes the $25,000, cashes it, and all of a sudden the lawsuit in Florida for Trump University goes away. And as you know, the state of New York did bring up conviction charges on Trump University, and of course it's no longer in existence. But as for Pam Bondi, she found no illegalities going on whatsoever. So, and that was a big story here in Florida in 2016. Of course, she's much younger then. She was just Florida's AG, not what she is in the position today. But it's interesting that the fact of the matter is that, what went on with Pam back then continues on to present time almost. Now, the reason I say that is in 2020, Pam Bondi was Qatar's on their payroll as a foreign lobbyist. They were paying her. So now do you see the ties? 2016, 25 grand. Pam Bondi was a foreign lobbyist for Qatar in 2020, and she has already signed off on this jet being okay for him to have. Although the Dems have questioned it, they were in the minority, and Bondi flew right through with flying colors to get this done. As you know, when she was being nominated, the Democrats did question about Pam Bondi's ties to Qatar, and she acknowledged that she was a foreign lobbyist, but there's no conflict of interest. There's nothing going on. And, of course, at that time, the jet was not in question, and the trips to the Middle East were not in question. So the Democrats, even though they objected to it and found it very suspicious, the Republicans, since they're in the majority, just sailed her right through. And, of course, she became the, president's attorney general as we know today. So there you go. Now, what else is going on in the news today? This next story, ladies and gentlemen, is not made up. It's true as hell, and it is absolutely absurd. But I'm going to talk to you about it. The Daily Mail is reporting that there is going to be possibly a new reality show featuring immigrants on their rush to become U.S. citizens. And who verified that story? Yes. The Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem. So she has already said that, yes, that is in fact true. It's going to happen. The Daily Mail is reporting that the new reality TV show that sees immigrants competing for U.S. citizenship has the backing of the Trump administration. Donald Trump's presidency already feels like a reality show in many ways, doesn't it? But his Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, is reporting that it is going to be taking it a step further. According to the Daily Mail, Noem is developing this reality TV series where immigrants will compete for a chance to earn a U.S. citizenship per a 35-page pitch viewed by the Daily Mail. Noem has been working with the writer and producer Rob Wersoff, Duck Dynasty, if you may remember, and a new program called The American. Yes, immigrants are going to become Americans. The competition series would feature 12 immigrants arriving in America via Ellis Island before traveling across the country to compete in various challenges. The grand prize winner would be sworn in as a U.S. citizen on the steps of the Capitol. Can you believe this crap? According to the pitch doc, proposed challenges include mining for gold in San Francisco, balancing logs in Wisconsin, rafting down a river in Colorado, and building a rocket for NASA in Florida. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security told the Daily Beast that the show, I'm not making this crap up, folks, that the concept is in the very beginning stages of the vetting process, and she denied that Noem is directly involved in its development. However, citing sources, the Daily Mail reports that Noem supports the project and wants it to proceed and has been working for weeks to get such a project greenlit from Netflix or another streaming or cable services. Talk about degrading to possible U.S. citizens. And I'm sure they're going to find enough immigrants who want to become U.S. citizens so bad that they would get in on this. Unbelievable. This is laughing, but it's possible. And again, since Trump's, almost half his administration is made up of people from television anyway, Fox News specifically, and you've got Kristi here saying, yeah, that sounds like a cool idea, man. You got our support. And I'm sure there'll be some kickbacks, because if you're going to have a program and let's say behind the scenes she's listed as an executive producer, she's going to get some money for it. So can you believe this crap? I mean, yeah, there you go. Immigrants in reality TV, in color. I don't know. It's just, my God, unbelievable. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Trump's big, beautiful house bill that is, trying to be made. And Mike Johnson, Mike Johnson, by the way, he's trying to get things okayed that it's okay for people in the Congress to have stocks and do trade stocks while they're in office and make money like Marjorie Taylor Greene did. So, but that's a different story we'll talk about in another episode. Let's talk about the big, beautiful House bill that's going on, all right? Because that, ladies and gentlemen, is our top story for this particular episode of The Right Has Left. And Trump's big, beautiful bill, the reason I want to do this is because I want to take a deep dive into what's going on with this bill. It's got a long ways to go, and of course, it has to be passed through the Senate before it even gets anywhere, but they're working on getting it finalized. If you haven't already looked into it, and I encourage you to take a deep dive as I'm doing here for you, make sure you see what's going on in this bill, because, folks, this is your livelihood. And so some of the things that are going on are tax cuts for individuals and businesses central to the GOP package. It's more than $5 trillion in tax cuts, according to an estimate from the Joint Committee on Taxation. Costs that are partially going to be offset by spending cuts elsewhere and other changes in the tax code. Republicans look to make permanent the individual income tax cuts passed by Trump's first term in 2017, plus enact on promises that he made in 2024 to the people that voted him in. Although there are things in there that he wants changed that was not voted in by the constituents when they put him in office. In other words, they didn't okay this, but he's got some other things going on too. Number one is to not tax tips. That's probably a good thing, and like I said, I'm transparent. When I actually agree with this guy, I'll say I agree, and I agree there should not be taxes on tips that people make. They work hard enough, so that's a good thing. I'll support that. No tax on overtime. I support that. People have to bust their butt to make a living. There shouldn't be any. That should not be taxable income. And interest on some auto loans to partially offset the cost revenue. Republicans are proposing, repealing a phasing out more quickly of the clean energy tax credit passed during the Joe Biden's presidency. I am not in favor of that. We do need clean energy. And that's going to help bring down the overall cost of the tax portion to about $3.8 trillion. Now, the bill also includes a temporary $2,000 boost to the standard deduction, bringing it to $32,000 for joint income filers. And there's a temporary $500 increase in the tax to child credit. That's a good thing, bringing it to about $2,500. Now, the estate tax exemption raises to $15 million. Several of the provisions that the Trump touted on the campaign trail would be temporarily, lasting only running through about his second term in office. And that's true. And reading over this, these cuts that you're seeing and the increases in deductions is only good for 2 years. I've been finding that out. The tax breaks for tips, overtime, and car loan interest expire at the end of 2028, as I just mentioned. That's also the case for a $4,000 increase in the standard deduction for seniors, people over 65. They get an extra $4,000 deduction that is supposed to be, that's reflecting so there's no tax on Social Security. So they figured the average, what people make in Social Security as they retire, this $4,000 should offset any taxes that's presently already on Social Security. So that should be a wash. I don't know about that, but it doesn't sound too bad. Parents and older Americans face work requirements for food assistance. This is kind of where it gets sticky because a lot of people are fully disabled. So House Republicans are looking to shift some of the costs of the Supplemental Nutrition and Assistance Program, known as SNAP, food stamps, basically, to the states. States would also have to shoulder 5% of the benefit costs beginning its fiscal year 2028 and 75% of the administrative costs. Currently, states pay none of these benefits and have their administration costs that exist. So like here in the state of Florida, if you are looking to apply for food stamps and Florida says, nah, we're not going to go along with that. We're not going to pay any of that crap. You may not get any food stamps at all because they don't want to shoulder any of the costs. I don't think you're going to have that problem in the red states, but the blue states, any of those problems in the blue states, but the red states probably are not going to go along with that. So get your states straight there, Roy. So moving on, under current law, able-bodied adults without any dependents must fulfill work requirements until they're age 54, and that's going to change now till they're age 64. So we already know that people on food stamps, if they're under the age of 64, they don't have to do any of this stuff. So now you're going to have to work or find some sort of partial income to fulfill requirements to be on food stamps until you reach age 64 instead of 54, as it's previously stated. Also, some parents are currently exempt from work requirements until their children are 18. That's also going to change. You're going to have to go to work. And only those caring for a dependent child under the age of 7 would be exempt. All right, have to get older than that. You got to at least put some hours in. At the same time, the legislation would invest $60 billion in new money for agricultural programs, spending aid to farmers, and a new work requirement for people on Medicaid. This is where it gets kind of sticky. A focal point of the package is nearly $800 billion in reduced spending in the Medicaid program, although they said they would never cut Medicaid. Yes, they are. To be eligible for Medicaid going forth, if this bill passes, there would be a new community engagement requirement of at least 80 hours per month of work, education, or service for able-bodied adults without dependents. Quote marks around able-bodied adults. This is interesting because of the fact of the matter is, and this is where the Democrats are having problems about this Medicaid. This has been the whole thing going on. What is considered an able-bodied adult? Now, the Republicans are willing to concede that, if you're in a wheelchair, you just can't work. There's something going on that just allows you where you can't work. Hey, you can do community service. You can get in your wheelchair and maybe go down and help hand out food or do something or make some clothes for the homeless. Just show us that, you want to work for that Medicaid supplement. So, a lot of people on Medicaid, if they're under 60, I guess the age gap here that they're setting now is 65. So if you're over 65, none of this would apply to you as a senior. But for people under 65 that are on Medicaid, they're going to want at least 80 hours a month out of you to continue to get your Medicaid benefits, no matter what you have to do. Most people on Medicaid, they feel, have some sort of pathway to do some kind of work. In other words, get off your butt and work 80 hours a month and earn your money. I'm anxious to see how that's going to go. So the new requirements would not kick in until January 1st, 2029, after Trump leaves office. So if he leaves office and you get a Democrat in, this is probably not going to go back the way it used to be. So we'll see. If another Republican is elected president, then this stuff will probably kick in, because I can guarantee you right now, if the Democrats get control back of the office, all this crap that's been said here is going to be quickly changed back to the way it used to be. People are also going to have to verify their eligibility for the program twice a year rather than just once a year. Republicans are looking to generate savings with new work requirements. In other words, if you're on Medicaid, every 6 months you got to report in and to make sure that you're meeting all of these goals. But the Democrats have warned that millions of Americans are going to lose coverage because they just can't do any of this. An estimate from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office said that the proposal would reduce the number of people with health care by at least 7.6 million from the Medicaid changes, and possibly more with other changes to the Affordable Care Act. That's another thing they want to change. So applicants could not qualify for Medicaid if they have a home that is least valued at more than $1 million. No taxes on gun silencers, too. That's another thing that's coming on. Can you believe this? No money from Planned Parenthood, and more Republicans are also using the package to reward allies and disadvantaged political foes. The package would eliminate a $200 tax on gun silencers that has existed since Congress passed the National Firearms Act in 1934. I didn't even know this stuff was taxed. So Republicans are also looking to prohibit Medicaid funds from going to Planned Parenthood, which provides abortion care. They don't want any funds from Medicaid going to that either. It's too bad if your 12-year-old girl gets raped by Uncle Joe and she needs to not have that baby, and you are a poor person, you're on Medicaid, you go ahead and have that kid, little 12-year-old, and maybe you can adopt it out somebody. I'm sorry about the traumatic stuff that's happened to you, and you may not be old enough to take care of a child, so that's just too damn bad. Democrats say defunding the organization would make it harder for millions of patients to get cancer screenings, too. Pap smears and birth control, because that's all not going to be paid by Medicaid. And the bill would also allow the Trump administration to remove the tax-exempt status of nonprofits that it says supports terrorism. That will create some nonprofits say it's an arbitrary standard to financially punish charities that advocate for issues that don't align with Trump's agenda. Say nonprofit groups that maybe support Palestine, they'd rather lock you up than have you support Palestine, which is another story I'm going to get in here in just a minute too from my high profile person that did get arrested for supporting Palestine. MAGA kids, $1,000 in savings accounts for you. MAGA is shorthand for Trump's signature of Make America Great Again. But in this case, it means money accounts for growth and advancement for parents or guardians who open new MAGA accounts for their children. The federal government will contribute $1,000 for babies born between January 1st, 2024 and December 31st, 2028. Families could add $5,000 a year with the account holders unable to take distributions before age 18. You remember where Trump said that he wanted to have more babies, and he's trying to figure out a way to pay families to have more babies because the United States birth rate is dropping? Aha, what I just read to you. That's his way of getting families to crank out kids for $1,000. All right, yeah, want $1,000? Have a baby. So then they can't get to the money till they're 18. But hey, that's why they want to have more babies. And they're willing to access up to 50% of the money to pay for higher education, training, and first-time home purchases. That's right. At age 30, account holders have access to the full balance of the account for any purposes funding for Trump's mass for that. Now, moving on. Trump's mass deportation operation. The legislation would provide $46.5 billion to revive construction of Trump's wall. As you know, that never got finished, even though he said he was going to do that, along the U.S.-Mexico border, and more money for the deportation agenda. There's $4 billion to hire an additional 3,000 new Border Patrol agents, as well as 5,000 new custom officers, and $2.1 billion for signing and retention bonuses. There's also funds for 10,000 more immigration and custom enforcement officers and investigators. So let's beef up the Border Patrol, beef up ICE, and beef up our military. It includes major changes to the immigration policy, imposing a $1,000 fee on immigrants seeking asylum. So if you want to come to the United States, you want asylum, please write us a check for $1,000. We'll see what we can do for you. Something the nation has never done, putting it on par with others, including Australia and Iran, who charge for immigration. Overall, the plan is to remove 1 million immigrants annually as they continue on their mass deportation policies, and house 100,000 people in detention centers. This is a story I did my last episode. Trump's reopening all these private prisons that have been closed to private industries. And, of course, these private industries are charging the federal government millions and millions and millions of dollars to house immigrants that are here in the United States. And that's okay, because some of his people who have contributed to his campaign operate those prisons. So he's saying thank you by opening these back up and housing these immigrants. And how they're being treated and if they're getting the proper care, who knows. But let's get those private prisons reopened. More money for the Pentagon and Trump's Golden Dome. There's also nearly $150 billion new money for the Defense Department and national security. It would provide $25 billion for Trump's Golden Dome, as I mentioned, and a long-envisioned missile defense shield. $21 billion to restock the nation's ammunition arsenal. $34 billion to expand the naval fleet with more shipbuilding, and some $5 billion for border security. It also includes $9 billion for service member quality of life related issues, including housing, health care, and special pay. Taxes on university endowments and overhaul the student loans. A wholesale revamping of the student loan program is key to the legislation, providing $330 billion in budget cuts and savings. So, again, if you're planning on going to college, you better be getting your loans taken care of, and what money that you're going to need right now before this stuff, if it does become law. Again, this all has to go through the Senate. There will probably be more changes, but you think about that. The proposal will replace all existing student loan repayment plans with just two: a standard option with monthly payments spread out over 10 to 25 years, and a repayment assistance plan that is generally less generous than those it would replace. Among other changes, the bill would repeal the Biden-era regulations that made it easier for borrowers to get loans canceled if the colleges defrauded them or closed suddenly. In other words, there's a lot of people who have gotten their 4-year degree, gone to college, or got their master's, and they're still having hard time finding work. All right. But, now the federal government says, well, we don't give a crap if you're having a hard time. You start repaying your loans. Well, can't afford $150 a month. Tough shit. That's basically what we got going on there. And there would be tax increases up to 21% on some university endowments because Trump doesn't like certain universities. More drilling, mining on public lands, on National Park Service lands, U.S. Forest Service lands. And I'm thinking about states like Wyoming, which is 95% federal lands. Go ahead and drill on all that. The hell with the elk, deer, and everybody else. Let's get some drilling going on here. So this is to generate more revenue. And there's a lot of people, environmentalists, that are upset about this, drilling on federal lands. One section would allow increased leasing of public lands for drilling, mining, and logging while clearing the path for more development by speeding up government approvals. So cut down those trees. Drill, baby, drill. Royalty rates paid by companies to extract oil, gas, and coal would be cut, reversing Biden's attempts to curb fossil fuels to help address climate change. In a last-minute ad, Republicans also included a provision authorizing sales of hundreds of thousands of acres of public lands in Nevada and Utah, prompting outrage from Democrats and those environmentalists. So there you go. That is the big, beautiful bill for Trump as it stands right now. That doesn't include everything, but I gave you some highlights. In a nutshell, student loan repayment stuff, there's only going to be two options. The good news, some increases of deductions for seniors, and Medicaid is going to be tremendously cut back, and a lot more restrictor rules for that. And Trump wants to pay you to have babies, $1,000, and you can tap into that money as you get older. And he wants to do away with all the restrictions on our public lands here, cut down trees, and start drilling and pumping for oil and gas on federal lands, including the national parks. It's I would say the bad outweighs the good on all this. And again, this is all just preliminary stuff. It has to go through the Senate, and the Senate's probably going to make some changes and stuff, something they like or don't like, and it's got to go back to the House and get revised. So this has got a ways to go, but you can basically see where Congress is going with this. It's pretty damn scary, if you ask me. All right. Ben Cohen, you know him of the Ben and Jerry's fame. Well, he's a co-founder of that ice cream maker. Well, he was arrested Wednesday at a Senate committee hearing that included testimony from Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., according to a spokesperson for the United States Capitol Police. Watch this.
The budget I'm presenting today supports these goals and reflects...
Pays for bombs to kill kids in Gaza. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be permitted while the committee conducts its business.
Now, Ben Cohen was one of 7 people who were arrested at the hearing held by the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. As you just saw in that clip, the video shows several protesters standing and brandishing signs, with one shouting, "RFK kills people with AIDS," as Kennedy delivered his testimony. Again, that was a sign. That's not what I'm saying, so please keep that in mind. Moments later, Cohen rose to his feet and accused Congress of playing with their role in the deaths of children in Gaza, and that was the main part of the protest, was Palestine. Amid the Israel-Hamas war, protesters interrupted RFK Jr. during the Senate hearing on H.H. Bill 241, Bill Cassidy, the committee's chairman, asked the Capitol Police, please remove the protesters from the hearing room. And they did. Officers physically removed Cohen and 6 other pro-Gaza protesters and charged them with crowding, obstructing, and causing a disruption of proceedings. This is a misdemeanor offense, and it is against the law to protest inside congressional buildings. And all but Cohen faced charges of resisting arrest and assault on a police officer. Capitol Police said that it was, a crime. Just so you know, Cohen, was glad to do what he did. He got out of jail real quickly. He has a misdemeanor charge on him, and he just said they need to let food into Gaza, and they're not doing that. And these kids are starving. And he's always been a strong promoter of Palestinian innocent families there. And, he's been using his celebrity status to do that. And again, he got out of jail and everything is good to go right now. So he's going to be just fine. So speaking of RFK, let's talk about this for a moment. In a recent media blitz that he had about pharmaceuticals and the big pharma companies, RFK Jr. was talking about how he is going to be doing a big change and, getting more people to understand that he's going to get pharmaceuticals reduced, and that there's a lot of going on with the big pharma companies and the lobbyists paying people. But he made a comment that didn't really, I don't think, came out the way that he wanted to come out. And Donald Trump was standing there, and he was kind of like, oh, okay, watch this clip.
As it turns out, none of them were doing it. It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it. And the reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator on Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3. Pharmaceutical companies, the industry itself spends 3 times what the next largest lobbyist spends on lobbying. So this was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything because it was radioactive. They knew you couldn't get it by Congress. We now have a president who is a man of his word, who has the courage. President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry too. I think they gave you $100 million. But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country.
So what RFK was trying to say is that Donald Trump always keeps his word and can't be bought. But in the same breath, he says Trump took a ton of money from the big pharmas, and that was kind of comical there, where he's trying to say one thing, and that Trump he stands his ground and he doesn't take money from anybody. But as you just seen, he did accept a big check from the big pharma. And, of course, as we just saw in the show, Trump also accepted a gift of $400 million in the way of a luxury jet that he's going to convert to Air Force One at taxpayers' expense. And it's not going through the standard military upgrades that it's supposed to from the United States Air Force. We got an independent contractor that's going to be doing that, although they do have experience in doing upgrades and security with Air Force One. But still, he's rushing this along, ladies and gentlemen, because the Air Force said it would take typically 3 years to do, to get that retrofitted the way it's supposed to be, and he wants it done now. So there you go. That's been this episode of The Right Has Left. I'm Roy Garton, your host. I hope you have a great week, and we'll be back next weekend with another episode. Until then, you take care.